Welcome to a special edition of Cosmic Road. Today I have Dr. Robert Shipe, the man that caught dragons, dragon UFOs, that is. And of course, by caught, I mean on camera. You know, as much as I love David Grush and that whole story, because those guys are hopefully going to expose the cover up and really, we're going to learn what the government knows and see if they are doing it right, and hopefully fix a mistake if they are doing it wrong. But what Dr. Robert Shipe is doing is actually furthering our understanding of the UFO phenomenon. He is one of the rare few that are actually pushing our knowledge of the phenomenon forward. And I am very honored to have him on today as a special guest to teach us what he has discovered in his fascinating research. So welcome to Cosmic Road. Get in here. This is Jack Honor with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. All right. Thank you, Dr. Robert Shipe, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor. I look forward to sharing a lot of information with you and your viewers. I can tell you ahead of time, I'm going to tell you 100 things, and they're all going to sound impossible. And I've documented everything, and I'd be happy to answer any question. If you just want to, if I could tell you a little bit about myself briefly, and then we'll jump in. I'm born and raised Los Angeles. I'm a retired pharmacist. In the 80s, I started the first mail order pharmacy in the United States. I invented the mail order pharmacy business. I did that for 25 years. I retired 10 years ago. Very successful. And I'm an inventor also. I got my first patent last year. Well, about 6 years ago, something highly unusual. I live in Marina Del Rey, Los Angeles. It's the largest marina in North America. Well, something highly unusual started to happen. The Coast Guard and the Army, the Black Hawks, started to hover over Marina Del Rey, 200 feet. They started hovering for 4 hours every day for 2 weeks. And that got my curiosity as a scientist. I'm very curious, like, why would you be hovering over all these boats? There are 5,000 boats in Marina Del Rey. So I took out my little Sony camcorder, the 1080, 30 frames. I started to record them. And that's when I figured out there were these small objects flying up to the helicopters and flying away at very fast speeds, very fast. So like I said, I'm going to tell you 100 things. They're all going to be hard, but as later as I calculated, the speeds are 2,000 miles an hour, no sonic boom. Approximately, I've been researching this for 12,000 hours, 6 years. I have 4,000 videos. I've documented this with tons of videos using just high quality camcorders. I now use a Panasonic X1000, 4K 60 frames. I've attached a radar detector to my camera to pick up X and K band, which was confirmed a few months ago by the Pentagon. The Pentagon told Congress, hey, these things are triggering the X band. I have those videos. They're on my channel, Custodian File. The Pentagon did say these things are going 2,000 miles an hour, which I have on my videos. And I got to say, I have a good friend, Major George Filer, MUFON of New Jersey. And he called me April 19th, and very, very calmly, he said, Robert, they're talking about your videos at Congress. And I said, what, Major? What did you say? He said, they're talking about your videos, and that's how that's when I put one and one together. It's like, how did they guess my speed and my X-band data? They didn't guess. They're watching my videos. So
that's amazing. They should let me back up a minute. I feel like we may be ahead of some viewers who aren't familiar with you and your research. And okay, so when I first found you, it was on the Leak Projects interview that you did. A great interview, showed lots of your videos, and in them, I think you may have coined the term interpolation. Is that right? Yeah.
I did coin that term. I'm a pharmacist, not a photographer, but I had to, what I did eventually through years and years of trial and error, I said, you know, these videos, they're going 2,000 miles an hour. They're very short videos. The duration is 1/3 of a second. They're about 10 to 20 frames in that 1/3 of a second. What would happen if you copied and paste each frame? You could see where it started, you could see where it ended, and then I had to give it a name. And through a little bit of research, I decided to go with interpolation or basically, I didn't know that was a term, but evidently it has been in photography for the last 20 years. It's not being used. Now it's only being used right now because of AI. They're coming out with new software, video software, that can interpret each frame and clean it up, and they're calling it interpolation.
And Okay. from this, he makes interpolations where he can see moving objects within that footage that are moving basically too fast for the eye to catch. So, what does he catch? Look at that. Look at that. Okay. All right. Look at all this. Okay. So, let's just pause right there. So, this is a helicopter, obviously, and there are two objects streaking by this helicopter. And what are those objects? Well, those are UFOs. But what he has found is these objects will buzz anything, any object over 150 feet. It doesn't even have to be a vehicle. You know, they do love to buzz helicopters and planes, but they will also buzz birds and balloons and anything else. And he says the demarcation line or whatever is 150 feet. Over that, they will buzz you, and they will go right up to you. Look at that! Look at that! That's insane. Here's a bird. It's buzzing a bird. Well, he is able, like I say, to take these things and he can stitch together the flight pattern of these objects and make it into one still image where you can see the object that it's moving against or that it's buzzing as a still because it's moving so slowly. And these objects are moving so fast. Blink and you miss them. They are just ridiculously fast. And yeah, and here's two of them intersecting each other, and they will just buzz these ships all day long, all over the world. Let's go over what you have found, because what you have found are these tiny UFOs that will buzz at supersonic speeds, basically any airborne object over like 150 feet. Doesn't matter if it's a balloon, a bird, or a plane. They will buzz any airborne object. Is that what you have found? And can you tell us more about that?
Yes, yes. The easiest way, by the way, these things are extremely predictable. So when you see the videos, you're going to go, well, people don't say they're birds anymore because I have birds with UAPs, but a small percentage are like, no, these got to be bugs. Why are they not bugs? Because I have triangulated using two cameras. I have a roof camera that's 40 feet above my balcony camera. So I've recorded the same UAP with two cameras. You do the calculations. This one was 1,711 feet out. So you can triangulate on these UAPs. They do trigger the K and the X band, and they're extremely predictable. They fly at the same spot, and they only fly when there are helicopters in the sky. They are reconning our helicopters. Everything in our airspace is being reconned. And I've learned through trial and error that the Jetty Rocks in Marina del Rey is the hot zone. When helicopters, when the Army, when the Coast Guard, when they fly in, they fly over the Jetty Rocks. With 95% certainty, you can record these things flying by. And that's what I've done. And that's why I have so many videos, because it's predictable.
Okay, when you say these things, you mean the dragons. and you
Drags.
came up with dragon because at first you thought they were dragonflies until you studied them more closely and then realized, well, hey, these I can triangulate these. These are certainly not bugs. But the name dragon stuck, and so that's why we have the dragon UFOs that you have really discovered these tiny little objects. And you say they only appear when helicopters are in the sky?
Correct, correct. You've said it all right. 6 years ago, I was like many. This has to be a bug. It has to be a dragonfly. But when you get better camera equipment and trial and error, uh, and again, yeah, they only fly when there are choppers in the sky, and 150 feet gets their attention. So if the chopper's over 100 feet, or party balloons, or Earth drones, if you launch an Earth drone, I have 3 out of 3 Earth drone videos. They all get tagged crystal clear.
And when you say tagged, you mean tagged by the dragons?
A tag is when it flies through the frame and flies up to the object or just goes in front of the video. That's a tag.
Now, to be clear, will a dragon appear buzzing or tagging a drone even or only if there's a helicopter in the air, or
No, it could be anything over 150 feet.
okay, so a helicopter doesn't have to be in the sky as long as something is in the sky.
Correct.
Okay.
It could be a kite. You can go to the beach and launch your kite. I could record you from a distance and it will fly by.
Are there special objects that they love to buzz more than others?
They love helicopters. They love helicopters, but everybody gets reconned. I know it sounds silly, and they will recon you between every 5 seconds and 30 seconds, depending if you're in a hot zone. Again, the jetty rocks is the hot zone. If you're hanging around the jetty rocks, you will get repeatedly reconned.
Now, what's up with the jetty rocks? Why are those significant? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, after 6 years, I just learned, I went to Google Map and somebody pointed it out. One of my viewers, they said, look at the structures in the ground right here where the police and the Coast Guard are circling. And there are some unusual structures, something like I call them the 4x4. There are 4 rows with 4 holes. I don't know if somebody was drilling and they gave up, but it's right next to the jetty rocks. I can tell you the Coast Guard, the Army, the police are always circling the water. They have thermal cameras. They have flare thermal cameras. They can see these things coming in and out of the water. So they can be baited. They have a thermal signature. They have the X-band. And so they can be, and they're predictable. So, they're not totally invisible. They're hard to ever figure out. I mean, I've had a lot of help now. Some would say, how did you ever figure this out? Again, in a way, I did not figure it out. It was the Coast Guard and the Army flying over Marina del Rey for 2 weeks. So it was really a poker hand. They showed their cards. I looked at their cards. I recorded the helicopters. I put one and one together.
Okay, so that's right. So the government knows about this, or at least some part of the government knows about this, what I call the control group. So they not only know about these, but they actually fire on these things at certain times. Is that correct?
They did. Back in 2018, I got lucky. So all I do is okay, there's something called, here we go. I always keep this iPad with me. There's something called Plane Finder, planefinder.net. It's free radar. It's amazing. You can see every airplane in the world. I only use it to look at Marina del Rey. That's all I care about. So when you see a helicopter coming in, I go on my balcony, I record it. I get new U.A.P video, new Dragon video. I know it sounds too easy. You're saying, Robert, NASA spends trillions of dollars trying to record something tangible, and you're just using a $100 iPad and a good camcorder. I make it sound too easy. It's not easy, but that's the formula.
You use pretty sophisticated equipment. I've seen your cameras.
Yeah, trial and error. And being an inventor, I don't settle for standard. I really like, how do I make this better? How do I make this better? So I had to attach a 14-inch 4K monitor to the camera because you can't see, they give you that little 2-inch monitor on your camera. You can't see anything. So, and I invented a light box so I can see these things in the daytime. Um, so yeah, I've got it down to a predictable science, predictable.
Okay,
And
so how small are we talking about? How small are these UFOs?
okay, this is where it gets hard. And I have video to back this up. This isn't theory. And because I know the behavior, their flight behavior, I know where to find them. I know where to predict and where they will be. So when they're parked, they're about 1 inch. But when they're in flight, I know this is the hard part. When they're in flight, about 10 inches to the best of my knowledge. How do I know it's 10 inches? Because it flew up to a high voltage pole here in Marina del Rey, and the ceramic uh, insulators, they're called Brown Thompsons. Those are about 10 inches in diameter, like a little football. And so the silhouettes were about equal. So that's what I'm using for size comparison. Uh, but I also know that when they're close to velocity zero, they are very small. They're close to 1 inch. And I have found video to prove that.
So they increase in size when they're in motion.
Yes.
Am I understanding that right?
That's correct. Pretty basic physics. F equals ma. The more acceleration, the more mass. So far they are not violating the laws of physics as we know it. I'm not a
Okay.
physicist.
So in other words, to justify how fast we're going, they have to have more mass. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, correct, correct. And I run this by other scientists, and they said that's absolutely correct. F equals ma, mass
But surely,
acceleration.
if they can go, is like I'm assuming that some of these objects are at least related to other objects that can go interstellar velocities. We're talking faster than the speed of light potentially, warping space and time. Not to circumvent violating the laws of physics. As we understand them. But if you could increase your mass that fast, you would be infinite amount of mass. But if they're warping space and time to get around that, that principle, then I guess they could get bigger without getting infinitely bigger.
Well, they can get bigger by controlling their speed. So I say they're going 2,000 miles an hour, but I think they are doing that as a courtesy, Jack. They know my camera will not be able to record them after 2,000 miles an hour. I think they can go a lot faster, but they know, like, Robert's using this camera. It's designed the most we could push this thing. And besides, the human eye could only see. If they were going faster, we're just not going to see it. Even with a very sophisticated camera, it's not going to show up. So I think as a courtesy. Now, there might be other people. I've had some rocket scientists say, Robert, no, they're going 10,000 miles an hour. But that's not the point. My whole message is something is flying in our airspace. Marina del Rey is infested with these somethings, whatever they are. Our government 100% knows about it. 100.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. Okay, so I hate to interrupt you, but we have to at least dissect a few of those items. All right.
Please.
So one, you say that Marina del Rey is a particular hotspot. Well, hang on. That was your point number two. Okay, I'm getting out of order. First of all, you said that these dragons actually go slow so that you can video them. Now, that is the case in many experiencer accounts, as that sometimes they will be summoned out of their house to actually video or document these objects or beings or whatever it is. And so, do you feel like you have that relationship with the phenomenon where it wants you to document it?
I do. I do, Jack. Um, I've through the pharmacy, I met a lot of amazing people when I had my pharmacy, and one of them was a code breaker in the Air Force. His name was Glenn Falkenstein, and he actually in the 90s he tried to tell me about this, but I was so busy that I really didn't sit down and hear what he was saying. So he did bring this to my attention. It's almost as if Robert, you can learn about it back in the 90s, or you can learn about it now in 2017. But more or less, yeah, they want to be seen. They are flying in front of my camera. And the reason I know that Marina Del Rey is infested, because a plane finder, it would take some research, but any professional pilot could verify this. When you look at, remember, plane finders all over the world. There's only one place on planet Earth where there are clusters of helicopters flying in circles, and government helicopters, and that's Marina Del Rey. So that's all on the file. That's all on the data that you can go back 3 years on this.
And you think that indicates a particular presence of the phenomenon in Marina Del Rey?
You know, 1 and 1 is 2. Again, the Coast Guard, the Black Hawks, the Special Ops, they showed up first. I'm documenting it with video. Even if I didn't have any video, it would be highly suspicious. Why is Marina Del Rey being infested with all these military helicopters?
Well, it makes sense to me because that area in general is a hot spot. I mean, the Nimitz incident in 2004 did not happen that far from there. The Catalina Islands are not far from there. And they're a notorious place with a lot of activity. What do you think it is about that area? Is there a base under there in the sea? What's going on?
Yeah, are you familiar with the Malibu underwater base?
Where it looks like melted candle wax with the columns and yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Fascinating.
Very, very suspicious. Every time I look at it, it's approximately 5 miles, 8 miles from Point Mugu Naval Base. Now, that whole area where Point Mugu is, I think it's like 300 miles restricted, ocean and air. That's where they do all their test flights and bombings, etc. But that underground Malibu base is not in the trespass zone. However, I was watching an interview with Jimmy Church. He tried to go to that base, and the Navy pulled up on him and told him, get out of here.
That's a little suspicious.
And it's not in the no trespass zone, but they said, get out of here anyway. So I'm sorry, we have a structure that looks highly suspicious, and the Navy will not let you go there. I'm sorry, just it doesn't pass the smell test. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's get to the government involvement, because you have got this documented on your interpolations. You've got the black helicopters shooting at these dragons with some sort of energy weapon or something. This particular one, he believes that sometimes our vehicles will actually fire on them and pursue them with EMP devices. And this is actually a shot or an interpolation of a dragon that has been hit by an EMP weapon. And it descends at first, and then its internal AI healing mechanism or whatever fixes itself and is able to fly on. Yeah, I think that's the helicopter that fired the EMP device at this object, or EMP weapon, excuse me, at this object. Yeah. Can you explain that particular incident?
Well, yes, I can. So back in 2018, it was August 2018. Again, I'm watching Plane Finder. I see a helicopter coming in. It was a Black Hawk. I go out and record it. So I've recorded, literally, I have 4,000 videos. So this one shouldn't have been that much different. So I'm recording the Black Hawk. He's flying toward me. He's about 1 mile out, flying toward me. And I see a UAP Dragon fly by. And I go back and I watch it in slow motion. And it does not look normal at all. Normally, they look like a dark football, just a dark energy football oval. And in this case, this dragon was tumbling through the air. It had lost its matrix. So it was flat, it was crooked, it was a chevron. It was struggling. It was clearly on the video, it was struggling to try to keep in flight. And when you look at it, it plateaued, it descended, it plateaued and descended. I mean, it was used in all the mathematics in the universe to try to stay in the air. It did fly away, but luckily, and I don't know how lucky is it, but remember I have a roof camera. I went back and I checked my roof camera. And the moment Dragon 1 was shot, when it was tumbling through the air, a second dragon appeared from the 180 degrees. It rushed over to its rescue and they flew away.
That's amazing.
And
That's amazing.
I have it all on video.
I've seen it. It's incredible. And I'll try to share that if I can just splice it into this video. Because that is, have you caught any other, and just to continue with that one incident before we move on.
Okay.
So that was a helicopter firing on this dragon. Do you have any idea what sort of weapon they fired on this dragon with?
I had to assume, of course, I'm not privy to all the top secret weapons. Although I have friends in the government that tell me top secret stuff all the time, which I'm very puzzled. You know, it's something like people tell things to their bartender. Well, they do it, well, in fairness, they tell their doctors and their pharmacists secret stuff.
Yeah.
They just do, for what it's worth, for what it's worth. But it obviously had to be an energy weapon. Who knows? It could have been sound, could have been like some type of high-tech sonic boom. It could have been a high-tech EMP. I mean, I don't know how we got that lucky. I'm impressed. I did not think the Pentagon had weapons like that. But I could tell you ever since 2018, I do not have a video of a UAP Dragon being shot. I assume they adapted. They adapted to the energy frequency of our weapons, as if to say, you'll never get that lucky again. But I also can tell you in 2018, now I said this dragon got shot in August of 2018. I can tell you in February 2018, something highly unusual happened. I have it all on video. The roof camera caught it in February 2018, 7 o'clock at night. It was dark out. 4 Black Hawks fly in front of my roof camera, and they meant business. They meant business. The Alpha helicopter number 1, was flying with its spotlight, like a police spotlight, shining on the ground, as if to say, get out of our way. And so there were 4 of them. Chopper number 3 was flying lights out, total black. However, my roof camera could see the infrared, so it could see the heat on the engine. They flew off and they went north toward Point Magoo. Now, this is important. That was a Friday night. I think it was February 23rd, Friday night. And the reason is 2 days later, Sunday, February 25, Sunday at 2 o'clock, those 4 helicopters, those 4 Black Hawks returned, and all hell broke loose. They were flying frantically over Marina Del Rey in a circle, frantically, as if they lost something and their life depended on it. And I told my wife, turn on your camera, record this. And sure enough, I have it all on video. You can see these dragons flying around these 4 helicopters. And they did their best for like 15 minutes. It was like the general told them, you go get that thing and do not come back without it. And so they did their best, and they finally reluctantly left, but I caught it all on video. I surmised that they took whatever package, they had a VIP package 2 days earlier, in helicopter number 3 that was flying with its lights off. They took that package to Point Magoo. They parked it there. Saturday, they probably put together a professional team. Sunday morning, evidently they must have captured one. I don't know how they captured one. They opened the box, they opened the cargo. That thing flew out and the race was on. And it flew back to origin being Marina Del Rey. And the chase has never stopped. And this has been going on every day well, since the summer of 2017, but this has been going on. And still, so when I say military choppers, I'm not exaggerating. We have Blackhawks, we have Ospreys, we have Apaches, we have Navy Seahawks. Navy Seahawks hunt submarines. Navy Seahawks are, we just had one here 5 minutes before the interview started. We had a Navy Seahawk. I haven't even watched the video yet. I was able to record it. It has not stopped. The government is not giving up. You would think they'd give up. They're not giving up. These dragons are not leaving. I don't know where this is going. Now,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off. Do you want to wrap that up?
Yeah. Just these things are ubiquitous. They're all over the world. People are sending me video from all over the world. I told them how to do it. Take your cell phone, hold it landscape, zoom in halfway, 30 seconds. The majority of the time you will catch one of these dragons. They're very fast. If you blink, you'll miss it. But if you rewatch, and record 10 or 20 videos, you will see these things.
Okay, so the government knows about them. We don't know how long they've known about them, but we do know they've been covering this stuff up probably since Roswell or before. You could conceivably imagine a scenario where they could reverse engineer some technology to shoot these things down. However, to me, that seems less likely. Would a caveman be able to reverse engineer a 747? Maybe not. So maybe it's more likely to be gifted technology, gifted from the beings or in some way working with beings to develop this technology, which is what multiple witnesses, whistleblowers have said over the years. I did a video on a Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineer who worked on the SR-71 Blackbird in the 60s. And he said his fellow engineers at Skunk Works were working with the beings, developing some sort of training device to enable pilots to learn how to fly UFOs. So if that is true, and this was basically a deathbed confession on his part, he waited until the end of his life to reveal this. And there's multiple other witnesses of that caliber saying basically the same thing, that from the late 50s and the 60s, that we've been working with the beings. I don't know if that's still ongoing, but that would be a possible avenue for us to have acquired the technology. In which case we are shooting at dragons, which are presumably belong to one race or multiple races of being, one set of beings. And we are working with another race who has gifted us this technology. Do you think, if that's true, and you could please tell me your own thoughts on that, but did the beings that gave us this technology want us to shoot at this technology from this other race? Is there some sort of cosmic war that we are caught in the middle of?
Wow, what a great question. That's probably outside my scope. I don't have government people telling me facts about that. But maybe it's to keep the playing field even. Maybe their information is being gifted to us because there are some dark entities giving information to other governments. So maybe it's a balance of power to somewhat keep equal. I can tell you briefly, I personally have seen an email from Lockheed, and to sum it up, it ends by saying, I mean, this is no surprise, but it ends by saying, we would love to get our hands on one of these UAPs to back engineer it. Straight up.
Okay.
I've seen the email.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, it's people, again, they tell me stuff. They just tell me stuff.
Yeah. Feel free to say on. I mean, I'm not going to stop you there.
Well, I don't know if that email was top secret or not.
Okay, well, let me just ask you, because I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. You mentioned dark entities giving information to other governments. Can you expound on that at all?
No, I don't have any insight, but you could assume in a universe there's good and bad. And some of these dark entities, maybe unfortunately, there's bad people on Earth, and they want to make a handshake, a deal with these dark entities. So in all fairness, The good entities would have to give us technology at least to say stay even, break even, at least. Uh, but we don't know for sure, and until I get inside information, I don't know for sure. I wish I had it. I tell you. All I know 100% for sure, and this is a lot, that we are being reconned, and that Marina Del Rey is infested with these small UAPs. Anyone can record it. It's not just me. Anybody with a camera. You wait for hell. You can go to your airport where you live, record airliners. Airliners are the easiest. They're very easy. There's an airspace right here, Culver City, California. They love to tag jet airliners over Culver City, California. 99% predictable.
Wow.
In fact, 3 years ago, China Airline was over Culver City, California. The pilot saw a UFO and reported it to the FAA. He says, I'm over Culver City, I just saw a UFO. And that's repeatable. I do that when I'm bored and I want extra video. I just point my camera over the airspace, I get new video.
So what are these things, Dr. Shipe? I mean, are they drones? You know, we hear stories about UFOs that are bigger on the inside, but that would have to be pretty big on the inside, you know, proportionally to have a creature in there, you would think, unless it's very small. So are they drones? What are they?
That's a great question. I had an impossible meeting in 2019. I had an impossible meeting. I had to sit down with the government. Almost accidental, but it was the real deal. And that was their first question. Are there beings inside these things? And I was kind of puzzled. I said, you know, I just told you they're 10 inches. Why would you ask me if there's beings? And they go, no, are there beings inside? And I thought about it for years, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know dimensional physics. As far as we know, it could be 100 feet inside these little objects. We just don't know. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's AI. And when I speak of AI, I'm talking about ET AI. I'm not talking about Earth AI. So we don't know. You know, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. But if enough people, the whole point is, if enough people just learn that these things are right in front of, and they really are. They're all over. They're all air shows. They love air shows. I came up with the conclusion: if helicopters and airplanes are being tagged, maybe they're at air shows. So I started 6 years ago. I started watching Blue Angels and Thunderbirds on YouTube based on the assumption that they would be there, and my assumption is 100% correct. And I found 100 locations where these things are all over our jets, all over. And by the way, when you see one up close, you're going to think it's a bug because you're going to see these wings. You're going to see these two wings, but these wings really, in my opinion, they're plasma jets. They run on electricity, high voltage, extreme high voltage. So, and that's why they were hanging around those high voltage lines. I have a video of them coming down high voltage lines. That's how I estimated they were 10 inches. So, in my opinion, they're not violating any laws of physics. They go from 0 to 2,000 because they go from 0 to 100 million volts in 1 second. So when you have that kind of physics, you can achieve that kind of speed.
Well, that reminds me of the Tic Tac, right? It had the prongs off of it. I wonder if that was some sort of similar technology.
Probably very similar technology. It's voltage, it's plasma. You know, nothing works for free in the universe. Nothing. Heat is energy. Energy is electricity. So yeah, you see these things, these UAPs hanging around the sun. They're recharging. They're hanging around our nuclear power plants. They're recharging. They're recharging for free. There's nothing we could do about it.
So you don't think they're working on 0 point energy or element 115 or any of that? You think they're operated on electricity?
Absolutely, 100% electricity. But the trick is, how do you cargo 100 million volts without evaporating? And you got to have superconductors. You got to have very advanced superconductors. And those are what we do not have and we will not have for hundreds of years. Now, we'll get there step by step, but it's like you said, you give a 747 to a caveman, The caveman's going to say, well, come back in 10,000 years and I'll build you a 747.
Well, at Skinwalker Ranch, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the secret of Skinwalker Ranch, but when they were digging into the mesa and pulling out materials, they found these little flakes that seemed to be a possibly superconductor material, which is really interesting.
I saw that. Yeah. Just logical and science, it would have to be some type of advanced superconductors. Electricity really, see, electricity is all over Earth, lightning, and the same physics, rotation, clouds, winds, those are on other planets. So you can assume electricity is on other planets. So they can go from planet to planet and recharge their vessels. It's universal. That's how any engineer would design something. It would have to be universal.
Okay, have you noticed any patterns to the dragons? Are there seasonal variations? Are there times of day or night when they are more present than others?
Great question. They fly 724, winter or summer. In the freezing winter, they are still recordable. The police, the government doesn't give up. They're here every day. It's as frustrating as it is. They are not giving up. There are at least 100 pilots that know the truth. Congress can interview who they want to interview, but if I was Congress, I would go straight to these 100 pilots. But they're summer, winter, they're always here day and night, because even in the nighttime, the police and the Coast Guard are still flying circles over the ocean.
Right. And you think they're hunting dragons?
They can see them with their thermal camera.
If they can shoot at them, they must be able to see them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how the secret government has some sort of agenda against these craft, but we also talked about how Congress may be being made aware of your research and what you have discovered. Can you talk at all about what Congress is doing per your research?
Well, the first part's open to the press, and then the second part in closed doors is top secret. So, what the major told me, maybe he was like, maybe he was thinking, well, you're not supposed to tell anyone, but nobody's going to approach this major filer. He's like 95 years old. He's been around. You should be interviewing this guy. He was the official major that reported daily UFO activity to the generals in the 50s and 60s and 70s. That was his only job. The generals at the Pentagon wanted to know what's the newest UFO information. So he's told me some very interesting stuff. I mean, I could share a little with you if you want.
Absolutely.
This is nowhere on the internet. Some people might say, well, that's not verifiable. I don't make stuff up. But he told me, I won't tell you the general's name, but he was the commander of NORAD. He told him, like, it was 1972, and he said, Major, for the last, you don't know this, but we had a campaign in 1950, 1960 for 20 years. And our campaign was to shoot down a UFO at any cost. And now, with 22 years later, I could tell you that campaign was a disaster, because on the average, we lost one aircraft in the world every day. Every day. So they did this every day for 20 years before they decided it was bad. And he told the major what they would do is they would turn around our missiles and shoot down our planes. So they weren't necessarily shot down with plasma weapons. They would just turn around our missiles. And I call that a return to sender policy. And if you think about it, a few months ago, when we were shooting down one of those balloons over Chicago airspace, they said our first missile missed. Our first air-to-air missile missed, and we had to use a second one to shoot down a balloon. Okay.
Gives you a lot of confidence, right?
First of all, you take a slingshot or you take a bullet and you shoot down a weather balloon. You don't use a $500,000 air-to-air missile.
Right.
But the first one missed. really logically, knowing what I know now from what Major Filer told me, we shot at a UFO because the pilot says, I see it. It's a black hexagon. Well, I have that picture. I found a black hexagon UAP over Chicago airspace. So when our pilot shot at that black hexagon, it turned it around. And in my opinion, that pilot was running for his life. He was trying to outrun, like Tom Cruise, Top Gun, he was trying to outrun one of our own missiles. And I think because of his training, I would assume they teach our pilots how to outrun our own missiles. But he probably barely got out of there alive. That's what I think happened. So the black hexagon that our pilot said he saw, I have a picture of that. I found it. How did I find an impossible photo like that? How did I find it? I was watching Blue Angels videos in Chicago, and the Blue Angels is flying up, flying around, and sure enough, this black hexagon flies right in front of his windshield. And I said, oh my God, look at this video. So I copied it, I recorded it, I documented. That was really a good video.
And how big is the hexagon?
It was probably the size of a Volkswagen automobile, a Porsche.
Okay, so not a dragon, not a typical dragon.
Not a dragon,
okay.
not a dragon. And right behind it, now this is going to get a little complicated, but right behind it was another UAP, but it had camouflaged itself into an orange cloud. So this orange cloud flies by the windshield. And through trial and error, because I do have some videos of these dragons that turn orange. And I've concluded myself, this orange is the color of helium plasma. When you take helium plasma, you put an electrical charge through it, it turns orange. So that's how these things are operating. They're operating on electricity, but they're operating with different ions, either, wow, okay, real quick, my TV is texting what I'm saying right now. God, I don't even want to get into it. It only happens when I do these podcasts. It's so ridiculous. It was just and my TV is off. There's a black screen. It just started texting.
What?
I don't even.
Are you being monitored, Dr. Shipe?
Hey, they're not my dragons, Jack. What? Why would the government want to watch me? They're not mine.
Well, you're exposing the government's involvement. That they are aware of these things and attempting to do something about it. Although I'm not, at all persuaded that the control group is on the side of the angels. They could be shooting at the good guys. The dragons could be the good guys. We don't know.
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. I would tell there's a solution. I mean, even if you close down Los Angeles, maybe you could stop these videos, but they're all over the world. So I don't know how you're going to stop people from recording them. This is really a big issue. It's really a big issue. And I don't see it stopping. I really don't. I see it still escalating. And by the way, some people would say, well, this is black ops. This is a secret government program. Well, that could be. And every now and then, by the way, if I look at my plane finder, it's because I can hear helicopters and I'm seeing if there's one in front of my house. But they also, by the way, you're not supposed to, but some of these helicopters, they shut off their GPS locator. They shut it off when they come to Marina Del Rey.
Well, you couldn't properly have a black helicopter if you could track it.
Yeah, I mean,
what kind of man in black are you if you go around in a trackable copter?
Right, true. I would like to encourage the pilots to leave your GPS radio transponder turned on because it will give me more video. But it's really important, Jack, because someday the Pentagon's going to come to me and they're going to go, Robert, can we have your 4,000 videos? I will say, yes, you can have them. But if you had your GPS on, I could be giving you 10,000 videos. And because you're playing these games and you fly with it turned off, I have less videos to give you. So that would be my advice, just to leave it on. Don't try to be invisible. It is what it is.
That's the end of part 1 of my interview with Dr. Robert Shipe, but please check in tomorrow for part 2, the final part of this fascinating conversation with Dr. Robert Shipe. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. And join me on social media. I've got Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. And if you could share this video on social media, that would be super helpful. There's plenty of other videos to check out on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.